Hey, I hope you're doing well. There's been a lot of discussion I've seen about what Diablo 4 does right and what it does wrong, so I wanted to give you a video about what I think are the 5 best things about Diablo 4. Number 5. The campaign. This one isn't here for the reason you may think. Like, yeah, the cutscenes are great and the story overall is wonderful, but the real reason that I think this is one of the best things about Diablo is because it felt like the antagonists in the story were actually messing with my mind in real life. It's like I was being tricked by all sides and I didn't know who to side with. And really, even now, weeks after I beat the story, I still don't know if the main characters made the right decision. In my opinion, the campaign does start a little bit slow, but it slowly builds up into this like crescendo in the final act where, honestly, one of the coolest cutscenes I've ever seen in a video game takes place. Number 4. Atmosphere. Everything from the brutal combat animations to the guttural sounds that your character and enemies make, all the way to the just color scale being a lot darker, Diablo 4 is a much grittier game than what we got with Diablo 3. Each area of the map has a pretty unique vibe, and the towns themselves are just filled with despair. You definitely get the feeling that it would suck living in this world. Besides the visuals and the sounds, one thing that a lot of players miss out on is how the side quests really add to the atmosphere in the game. If you actually listen to the dialogue and understand what you're doing in these side quests, you'll see that the world is filled with all of these characters that have these incredibly sad stories. And on top of that, I can make an entire video alone about the background music in this game. I just think with all of those things combined, they really nailed the atmosphere. Number 3, class balance. I'm gonna head over to Maxwell for this because these guys are the best in the business at making these build guides and tier lists. For endgame, we have 4 out of 5 classes in S tier, with Sorcerer being the only one not there, but it's well represented in A tier. For speed farming, we have all 5 classes having an S tier build. For leveling, Rogue and Sorcerer kind of dominate up top, but you'll see we've got some Necro builds in A, and then in B tier we have Barbarian and Druid. This is not perfect, but it's not terrible either. And then in Nightmare Dungeon pushing, we have 4 out of the 5 classes in S tier, and then in A tier, we have the Sorcerer with a couple of builds as well. So you can see that the game is pretty well balanced, and if you want to make any type of class, you can. Personally, I have made all of them, and I'm having a blast running through all different types of content with each build that I've made. Number 2, combat. Once you get an endgame build together, though, combat feels pretty great. However, there are 2 instances where things don't feel the best. The first is when you're leveling a Barbarian or a Druid. It can feel clunky at times. The second instance is once you start transitioning from your leveling build over to your endgame build, you're going to have some resource management issues, but in my experience, that doesn't really last for that long. Grinding isn't something that I generally enjoy in games, but the gameplay is so good in Diablo 4 that I really don't mind it. Now, there are times in the higher levels where things can get a little bit stagnant, but when that happens, you can just switch off to an alt character and the game immediately starts feeling fresh again because the playstyles can vary so much between classes. To me, the most important thing about any game is that it's fun to play, and Diablo 4 is wildly successful in that department. Number 1, multiplayer. I'm of the opinion that most things are better with friends, and Diablo 4 is no exception to that. Whether you're running dungeons with one other friend or you're doing a Legion event with 10 other people, it's a blast. I know it's kind of controversial adding MMO aspects into Diablo, but in my opinion, they're really fun and it's a good addition to the game. But even if the massive multiplayer aspects of Diablo, like Legion events and world bosses, aren't really your thing, that's okay because you can get into a small group with your friends and push nightmare dungeons, run Helltide zones, do Tree of Whisper bounties. I mean, there's a lot to do and most all of it is fun. And while all of that is great, I think my favorite part of playing multiplayer has been figuring out which builds and classes synergize the best with one another. It's really cool playing with a friend and just communicating and seeing which abilities help them out and which of their abilities will help you out, and then tweaking your gameplay styles to help each other. And there you have it, my 5 favorite things about Diablo 4. I would love to hear in the comments what some of your favorite things are. Thanks a lot for watching, have a nice day.